All right, everyone, welcome to Coding Room's PD Day. This is a really exciting day for learning and playing around with an awesome coding platform. I want to emphasize at the beginning of this is our kind of getting started or introduction to Coding Room session. Many of you, actually most of you, I think according to the data we have from the signups, are completely new to Coding Room. So we want to make sure we give good explanation and walk through everything. Some of you have checked it out before, but it's always good to have a refresher, especially during the summer as we're getting started here. So, Coding Rooms, what I want to say when I start off is it's always been for teachers. What I loved about it, when I started using it in my classroom, was that I really got a sense from the people that were building it that they were building this for teachers and students to really have a more effective and efficient classroom environment, to make the barrier with getting students started with setting up a programming environment and making sure the computer's configured properly and the teacher being able to see the students' work, making that a lot easier for us teachers and students so that we can actually focus on the important skills in computer science and programming. Coding Rooms is really an education platform. You're going to see that throughout today. Today's session, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the developing environment or the tool itself that you can code in. But throughout the day, if you stick around for all the sessions, you'll see that it's really an entire platform that really manages your programming or computer science teaching experience in your classroom. What I'd like everyone to do, I'm going to throw it in the chat here, is go to app.codingrooms.com. And that's where you can sign in for your Coding Rooms account. You have many options too. You can just create an account with your email and password, or you can single sign in with Google, which is what I do and have my students do. There's also single sign in with Microsoft account, GitHub account, and some other options there. But you're going to be using, obviously, that site all day today, so you want to be able to open that up. Once you are logged in, you'll see what I'm sharing on my screen right now. And that is the Coding Rooms dashboard. If it's your first time, you're not going to have all these courses that I have here listed, but instead you'll have an empty dashboard that you can start to create a course. What I want to emphasize at the beginning is that there are really three sections to Coding Rooms that we're going to be focusing on throughout today. Two sections that I'm going to kind of talk about in this first hour-long session. At the top of the page, there are there's actually four tabs. One's the Help Center, that's just the help documentation. But there are these three tabs at the top, and those are really the three sections of Coding Rooms, the three main areas that you need to understand to start to wrap your head around how to use this platform successfully. The first one is courses. We have live classrooms, and we have workspaces. The courses area is where you can build assignments with auto grading, and it has a grade book and other features, and that we're going to really dig deeper into in the other sessions after mine today, where you can participate in sessions that show you how to set up auto grading and assignments with Python. We have one for Java, and we also have one for JavaScript. So that's where you can build these assignments. You can track your students' progress. You can collaborate and monitor your students, as well as auto-grade their work. What I'm going to focus on in today's session is this live classroom in the workspaces. So I'm going to dig into the workspaces first, and then we'll move over to the live classroom. So if you are successfully logged in, and I'm going to throw this in the chat one more time, just in case someone joined late, it's app.codingrooms.com to just log right in. Codingrooms.com would also get you in the right place. And you want to click at the top Workspaces. Now, what a workspace is, it's just a coding environment for your students to build something. So you can click on the new workspace button once you go to Workspaces, and we can start programming in your favorite programming language. I'm going to click on new workspace right now. So again, the top, there's tabs. You're going to click on Workspaces, and then we're going to click on New Workspace. You can give this workspace a title, any title you want. I'm just going to say PD Day Example. And after you do that, I want you to click on over here where we'll have a programming language selected. And you can click on that area after you give it a title and scroll through and see all of the programming language options. And this library of programming language or environment options is growing all the time. For instance, just this past weekend, I was working with the coding rooms team to get processing.py on here. So we have processing, which is Java syntax looking. Now we have processing.py, which has a Python file to run processing code, which is really cool. Actually, I'm gonna create one of those in a minute just for you to check out. But you can scroll through and you can check out all the different options. So feel free to select whatever language you're comfortable with. Java, you want to check out HTML, CSS, JavaScript environment where you can generate a web page. For now, I'm just going to select regular Python. You can select different versions. So if you're a Java user, for instance, you can select your different version of Java that you'd like to use. Python, we can select version 2 or 3, 3 being, of course, the latest version. And then you can click Create Workspace. And when you do so, it's going to bring you into the developing environment. This is like if your students were on, let's say, a Windows or a Mac computer in your computer lab, they would open up the developing environment, whatever tool you're using, and they could start coding, right? In the language, that's essentially what we did. But in the cloud, where they could do this on an iPad, a Chromebook, they can do it from any device, even their smartphone, just using a web browser. All the modern web browsers are supported: Safari, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Microsoft Edge. So you can use any of those and program with coding rooms. Now, of course, each of you may have selected some different programming languages, and that's fine for this session. We're not going to do a lot right here. I just want to do a little demo of this so you can understand how this workspace works. Again, this should feel familiar and pretty easy if you have experiences working with the programming language you selected. For instance, I selected Python here, Python 3, and it gave me some code that says, "Hello world, this is Python 3," and it in a print function, print statement. You'll notice there's a run button at the top, and I can just click run, and down in the console, it shows my code runs. And it's that easy for students to work with their code. Over on the left, you'll see the files area, and it's a file tree setup similar to what you probably have experienced either on other developing environments or developing IDEs, integrated developing environments, tools that you maybe have had on computers. We have some files over here. We can click the plus sign to create another file. So I'm going to call this another .py file. I created another Python file. I can create any kind of file I want. I can create a TXT, anything here. I can also create folders. And I can drag and drop my files into different folder structures, and you can set up however it is, whatever type of project you may have set up. You can also, you don't have to start from scratch. If you have created some projects, they're on your computer and you want students to use them, you can, of course, upload a file. And you can download all the code also if you needed to download it for whatever reason, students' code, etc. If you selected a language that has some kind of graphical interface, or for instance, I'm going to actually, let me type in like a little tkinter program. If anyone's familiar with Python, that's one of the basic libraries that comes with Python to create a little GUI window. I can import tkinter, tk, and I'll create an instance of TK window, keep it open. So you don't have to follow along and type this. If you have Python, you can go ahead and do that. But let's say someone did select processing or HTML. You may be saying, how do I see my web page? Or how do I see my processing graphical output? We have this button right here, View Desktop. And all this workspace is an instance of a Linux computer running your code. So when the students are running code, It just is running on this Linux machine, and we can actually see the desktop of this Linux machine, just like if you were in your computer lab and students were running a graphical output. So now if I click run, it's going to run that. Oh, it auto-completed on me. I wasn't paying attention because I was looking at you guys. There we go. And you can see my little window opened up right on the desktop. So even graphical outputs, user interfaces, graphics, GUIs, games can be built on coding rooms, and students can see them just like you were in your computer lab. But it's fully accessible just in the web browser, Chromebooks, any device that can access the internet. What I really like about coding rooms also is if you have multiple files your students need to run, coding rooms allows for this just little drop-down menu that allows you to run any file that is in your files tree. So I have multiple Python files. Instead of some weird configuration of some other things, I can very simply just select the file I want to run. That's maybe not the default file, and it will also run that particular code. So it makes it really easy for students to just simply run any code that's given to them in these files. We can also collaborate on these type of things, just like a Google Doc. So in the top right-hand corner, if you're in a workspace, if you click share, students as well as teachers can invite anybody to a coding room's workspace to collaborate or to as a read-only to check it out. Let's say you want to share some code with a student that they want to work on some project. You can share it with them even as read-only, and they can just click this fork button to create a copy of your read-only code for them to be able to work on their own. Or you can invite them as collaborators. Again, very much like a Google Doc, either read-only or you can invite them to edit the file. As I mentioned, this is just a Linux machine too. So if you do some different things with command line or shell it, and you want to do those type of Linux commands, move files around and stuff, it does fully work this console here to do any of that stuff. Now, let's get a little more hands-on with some of this. Actually, I did want to show off one little thing. I did want to go back, and I'm just going to create a another workspace with processing, just to show off that. I'll do processing.py. And what we have when you create workspaces with these other languages is, Doug, I'll answer your question in 1 minute because it was something that even stumped me. We do set up some templates for you so that can help your students out when getting started. And if we view the desktop here, because this has a graphical output, I can run the code and it will create that GUI. This one waits 3 seconds and then it's going to close the window. So each language does have some setup that automatically shows up as a template. And in a minute, I'll show you the feature that's more teacher-driven that we're going to mainly be looking at the rest of the session, in which you can interact and customize with your students a lot more. But this is the basis behind coding rooms. If you understand that, oh, we have this really great developing environment, first class kind of in the web browser developing environment, then we'll have that. Rochelle, I believe it has all the same capabilities as the desktop processing version, other than if there's some differences on how it runs on Windows versus Linux. That would be the only difference. It should work just like the desktop version. First, let me answer Doug's question, and then I'll get to Tom. Doug, the difference between the console and the shell is just that every time you run some code, the console refreshes and it has a new output. If you want an area that persists, kind of what you're typing, all the different commands you're typing, and it doesn't go away until you tell it to clear essentially the console area, you can go over to the shell and this will persist whatever you're typing. So I can kind of do that. And when I click run, it uses the console, not the shell. And see, notice my shell stayed. So that's essentially what that's for. You can type all the commands you want in the console, but just know that as soon as you click run, it's not going to clear out and go away. So if you want to keep any commands that you're kind of saving here, so you can just use the up arrow key and stuff like that to retrieve them, you want to use the shell for that. Yes. So someone asked about input. Absolutely, we have that. I'm going to go back to the PD day example. I'll just demonstrate that in Python quick. I can say input. Everything runs as you would expect. So now it's waiting for my input. I can type in my name and it moves on. So input works also. Now someone asked, how do I get back to the dashboard from this workspace? That would be this exit button up here. And you can, yes, leave the workspace and it will bring you back to the Workspaces area, and which you can click through Courses Live Classroom. If you click on the Coding Rooms logo here, it will bring you back to the regular dashboard. One more time, if you're in a workspace and you want to get out of the workspace, top right-hand corner, you can click Exit, and you can click Leave. Exit, and you can click Leave, and it will bring you back to the main dashboard area with the different 3 tabs: Courses, Live Classroom, and Workspaces. So this workspace idea, students can code, they do things, and it's real time like a Google Doc. That's the basis behind Coding Rooms. But what makes Coding Rooms really special is what I'm showing you next, and that's the live classroom. So if everyone could join me at this link right here that I'm going to put in the chat, you're going to be students in my live classroom. And I'm going to show you what the live classroom offers for teachers. And this is where it gets really powerful with conducting a lesson for that. A workspace is just like a project, Kathy. That's all it is. It's just one single project. It's an area where they have one instance of creating something, some coding project or thing. I'm going to go over, and I have this live classroom set up, Intro to Coding Rooms. So I'm going to start that up, and everyone should be able to join.
Joe, I'm sorry. I'm watching you on my iPad and I'm on my computer.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me the join code and password separately?
You should be able to just click the link, but yeah, I can get that for you.
But the link's on my iPad and I'm actually on my computer.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Okay. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. This is Enzo from Coding Rooms team here. Thanks for coming and joining us with Joe. I just want to interrupt here a little bit. We do have a 30-second form for you to fill out. So then afterwards, after the PD day, then we can basically send out a list of PD completion certificates. So be sure to check that out. I'm just going to put that in the live chat right now. And yeah, so thank you.
There's the join code and password bar. All right, so
thank you.
No problem. So if you clicked on that link, you should be able to join us in the Coding Rooms live classroom. And I'm seeing a bunch of people in here. And this is one of the first great things about the Coding Rooms live classroom is I can see everybody's joining. So when I'm looking out at my class and a student looks like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, I can really check to make sure that they're on here and doing something. I can see when they were last active. So every keystroke a student takes on here will update this activity monitor. Now, let me zoom in here. So Mr. Lowe, for instance, I know was active 2 minutes ago, probably when we first joined here. And we'll revisit this in a little bit when actually people are doing some things, and you can see how it updates a little bit more. Students can even indicate when they want to raise their hand, or essentially indicate to the teacher, hey, I need some help. So if you go over to this area, you should be able to raise your hand. And there we go. We got Thomas, we got Joe, people raising their hand, and they're thrown to the top so I can kind of see who raised their hand. Of course, we have a bunch of people in here, much larger than a class size I would have. And with everyone raising their hand, I would be like, oh my God, in a class with that many people needing help. But it's a good indicator to say to your students, hey, in a good culture to say, all right, if you need some help, raise your hand. So it's an indicator to me that you need some help and I can go help you. And you'll see in a minute how you can go help your student. The main thing I want you to look at right now is at the top, you have 2 tabs in this live classroom environment, the presentation and the My Workspace tab. And this is what's important when we get into the live classroom, when you introduce it to your students, is understanding what the heck these 2 areas are. The presentation is a space for everyone to that everyone sees. Everybody right now sees this. So for instance, I'm here. You can see me typing that in the presentation area if you have that selected and clicked. Which means you can see me type new code. In this area, I mainly use as a space for the students to see what the teacher wants to demo or what you're teaching them that day as you're trying to teach them live. That's why we call it the live classroom. And that's what that space is for. You can, however, make it a space that everyone can collaborate on. I turned on what they call streamlined code presentation, which means only me, the teacher, or anyone who's on as an instructor can edit this space. So you, as students, cannot edit this space. However, I could have turned that off and left it normal, in which everyone could edit on this space. With 70 people on this coding room right now, we have 89 people on the Zoom call. It would be really difficult to manage if everyone was in that one space working. So we have that off, and that's okay. That's what mainly I use it for, other than if I want to collaborate in class. When you click on My Workspace at the top, it will open up on the right a workspace specific for you. So the one on the left would be the presentation. The one on the right is a specific workspace for you. So we got a couple questions I'll address. Default is not streamlined, meaning everyone can edit. So when you create a live classroom, which I'll show at the end of this session, I'm going to show you how to create your own. That will be the last thing we do. I'll show you how to turn that on and off, but it's something you want to check. Enzo, could you throw the join link and code and stuff back into the chat? Thank you, Enzo. So streamlined is off by default, meaning everyone can edit that presentation area. Someone asked how to change the text size. The browser zoom in and out, if you just increase your zoom, it actually should increase the text size. It doesn't work perfectly because it also increases like this headers text size and stuff. So depending on your screen size, it might not be an ideal solution. Please, any feedback on things like that, please report them to coding rooms for them to look at and consider in improvements in the future. Someone mentions they have blind students. How does the developing environment work with screen readers? I'm not sure. I'm not the best person to ask for that. I haven't tried it myself. Use the coding room's live chat and send them the question and they'll get back to you. They're very good about that. Can you turn on one other person? Not sure what that question means, Melissa. So if you want to clarify, you can even unmute and clarify. I'd be okay with that. Melissa asked, okay, and maybe that was Melissa's other question here. Can other students see my code? Right now, if you're typing in my workspace, nobody else can see your code. I'll showcase that in 1 minute. Is there a visual indicator showing where you are? Yes, there is. It's just like a Google Doc. For instance, I can actually see, I think, where you guys are clicked on here. You just can't type. So if someone was to highlight some code on the streamlined, it might show up. You can't on the fly have a student edit the streamlined one. So you have to set that up ahead of time. However, they are looking at allowing for that, hopefully in the coming future. I have seen some little behind the scenes things at Coding Room. So Wendy brings up an important thing though. What you can do is you can add a TA or support, a student that's a support in your classroom. You can add as many instructors as you want. And those are people that would be able to edit the presentation, even with it streamlined, as well as see all the other students' code. So there are admin links and there's a regular student link, and you can give people that. All right, so we have the presentation area. This is where you can follow along. Everyone can see what any of the instructors on the workspace type and see. What you want to do is you would type your code inside of the My Workspace area. Notice this is the same workspace and developing environment that we just saw in a regular area. The special thing about it is you're all able inside the same window, able to watch me and what I'm demoing. For instance, let me grab that GUI code in the workspace. You're able to see what I do, and you can even open up my desktop to see the GUI that I created from my code. So if you go over to the presentation, you can see the code that I have. You can even copy the code that I have, and you can even view my desktop as well as my console when I run code. So the student sees in real time exactly what the teacher is doing without having to watch my screen share, and it's all inside the same window. This is really useful for my students who have smaller Chromebook screens. Now all in one window, they can see what I'm demoing, what I'm going over as I'm speaking, and they can work in their own developing area to write their code and test out things. So presentation area, students follow along. My workspace, they do what they want. For instance, I'm typing in my workspace right now, me as the instructor, and you can see it on the screen share in Zoom, but you cannot see what I'm typing. If you go in Coding Rooms and try to click around, you can't see what I'm typing in my workspace. I use this as the teacher. Sometimes I want to test something, something like you stumble on something, you go, hold on, I need to test something out. I go over to my workspace and I test it out myself before I go back for the students, so I can kind of play around without them watching something. You can switch between something for better viewing these different areas. If you just select one of them, it only shows one of them. So right now I'm just on my workspace. If I click on presentation, the presentation and my workspace shows up. If I click on my workspace, it gets rid of my workspace and just shows one at a time. So you can click on the tabs and just see one thing at a time if you want, or you can see them side by side in that split view. Now, again, the power of this is really the collaboration. So very cool. You can see what the teacher is doing and what you can work on something on your own side by side. That's great. I, as the teacher, can see all the students in here and see when they're active. So Mr. Roberts, for instance, was active a minute ago. Great, they're still working. Zach, 6 minutes ago. Emily, 9 minutes ago. They haven't been clicking around on the IDE and typing. So it's great, I can see all that. But what happens when, who's got their hand up still? Deborah needs help. So Deborah has her hand raised. Deborah needs help. What can the teacher do? Well, I'm going to click on, you guys won't have this tab because you're in the students right now, but I have a special tab. So you want to go over the screen, my screen share to see this. I can click on student workspaces. And when I click on student workspaces, I can see everyone's code now. Their private workspaces, your My Workspace area, I can see that. And not only can I see that, I can interact with it live, real time. So I can see you type real time. So for instance, I said Deborah was having a hard time. Look at, so I can see Francis over here is typing real time. Can the teacher prevent, I'm assuming copy and paste because I saw someone say that in the chat. I just haven't gotten to it. Not from the presentation area, you cannot, as of right now. They are working on some additions and changes with that, but they can technically copy and paste it. They just can't edit it. But notice, I can see in real time, it shows me the indicator of where their mouse is. Francis can see where my mouse is as I'm moving around, and we can interact just like a Google Doc in real time. I can even stop Francis's code and run it myself. I can highlight something, right click and add a comment. And now they can go over, hover over it, and it says, Mr. Mazzone said, this is great. And there's a comment in the student's code. And of course, I can use the actual programming languages commenting to do it also. But I can scroll through anybody's code and view it. And of course, we have a lot of people in here, so you can identify how many workspaces you want to see per page. And you can click through the next pages to get to a certain person. Who did I say had their hand raised? Deborah. So I can go over and let's say you're like, oh, let's say you have a class of 77 students like I have right here. It can be tough to find somebody. That's okay. You can just type in Deborah up here and it will find that one person. So now I've found Deborah. Deborah's having a syntax error. We're just missing a parenthesis. I add that, I run the code, and it's updated. Maybe I leave Deborah a comment. You were just missing a parenthesis. All in real time, they can see that. I see Deborah's in there. Says thanks to me. I move on to the next student. So easy to filter, find your students, select how many students you want to see per page. For more complicated kind of work, sometimes it's difficult in just this small square where you see two students side by side. Up at the top right-hand corner, you can say view workspace as full width. And then you kind of see it as a full width on your screen, and you can scroll through each student that way also. That's great for when you're using a GUI because it can be difficult on that small square. All right, I'll take some questions. Somebody unmuted. Anybody have a question? I heard someone unmute. Is there an option to move files between folders using the UI? There absolutely is. Mr. Lowe's, I'm gonna use yours. So I'm even doing this on a student's, not the presentation, not my workspace. I'm gonna go in the students and do that. I'm gonna create a folder. Some folder. And I'm gonna click and I can drag that right inside of this, in this folder here. And now it's inside of that folder. Can you run that file in that folder? Yes, you can. If I create another file and it's in that folder, another.py, put it in that folder, make it print. Look at in real time too. Mr. Lowe created a folder. I can click the drop down, run the other file, and it runs. So even The IDE is smart enough to look in folders and subfolders to find files that you may want to run based on this workspace. This one would be looking for Python files. I think actually it selects from a long list of different files that students may potentially want to use the run button, execute some code for. All right, I'm trying to look through the chat. After the teacher ends the live classroom, how can students access their workspace from that live classroom? Great question. So I didn't see Daryl ask it specifically, but thank you, Doug, for recapping that. So if you are using this live classroom for, let's say, an extended assignment, right? You're demoing a little bit, you want students to work in their own workspace, and then you come back to demo a little bit more, and this goes on for days, let's say. When you click the exit button, remember we saw this exit button in the regular workspace. You have multiple options for live classroom. For the live classroom, as this is the teacher on the teacher's end, so when you click exit, it just exits you out, just similar to the workspace. When I click it, we have finish and leave. If you just leave the live classroom, it stays open for students to still work inside that area, even without the teacher being there. For example, I'm going to click leave right now, and all of you still have access to that live classroom. You can still go in there, you can edit your own workspace, you can view the presentation area. I typically leave it open all the time because I'll do like a lesson in the beginning of class. I leave it open for students to go back to that lesson we did together from homework or some assignment they may be working on after. So I do that all the time. So you can still access, you can still code, you can do whatever you want in there. I can start it up again and go back in like everything was normal. Enzo, Enzo, can you answer the other question about students interacting when the teacher's not present? Can the teacher turn off the chat with other students?
Yeah, hi, Joe. So yeah, when you create your live classroom in the live classroom creation page, you can always disable the live chat function at the very bottom right corner here. What that does is basically it stops student from having student-to-student interaction, but the student will still have access to chat with you in real time in a real-time messaging to the teacher or to the class.
Correct. So that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure because I haven't done that specifically.
Yep, no problem. Sorry, everyone. I'm trying to get to everyone's questions, so bear with me.
I'm trying to. So the other thing was finish, and I saw somebody just threw in the chat, what does finish do? Finish will make it so when I click finish, you guys can't access that live classroom anymore. It's going to kick everyone out of the live classroom. So I'm going to do that now, and let me not do it now because just in case anybody has a hard time getting back in the live classroom, I will do it at the end, but I'll reopen the live classroom so you guys can still have access to this one if you want. You can leave it open in a tab while you're doing the rest of today's stuff, just in case there's something in there you want. So I'll reopen it after. Let me do that at the end. There are a couple more things I want to just show off about the IDE and tracking some different things. Let me just scroll through quick, see if I answer any questions. Can I test coding rooms by creating a pretend student? That's exactly what I did when I first tested it. Create another account. If you have some other dummy email or your personal email, create another, I use my school email, I use my personal email on coding rooms. I use my personal email as the student, and that's exactly what I did. You can open up 2 tabs and just play around like that, or 2 different browsers. You can do that kind of stuff. Somebody asked if you can do that, and that's exactly what I did. You can have multiple live classrooms. You can have as many live classrooms running. I'll give you for instance, I haven't exited most of the live classrooms I did all last school year. So there's probably like 100 live classrooms still open on my account. And coding rooms, the CEO of coding rooms said that they don't care, that's fine. So you don't have to ever finish them if you don't want to. Everyone is asking great questions. Does it save the content when you click finish? Yes, it does. So all the content's still there for you to reopen. So when at the end of this, before the 11 o'clock mark Eastern time for me, I will click finish and I'll reopen it, and you can see that everything's still there and everything's good. It will boot you guys out, but then when I reopen it, you can go back in. All right, I want to show off a couple other really great things for monitoring students, okay? So we saw that I can interact with them in real time. I can do different things. Someone's asking about how do we, the plagiarism stuff. That's what I'm going to showcase right now. One of the things, and they're working on other kind of stuff to help with plagiarism. So there are some other cool things coming in the future. But the thing that we have right now that's easiest to kind of find some copy and pastes and some possible plagiarism and stuff like that is the playback feature. So if I go over and I go into someone's workspace, let's find somebody that did some good work. Who's got at least multiple lines of code? Okay, right here. So Francis, I'm going to open up Francis's workspace. I'm actually going to go over here. I'm going to type in Francis, and if I click this button right here, it's going to open up full screen for me right here. I can click on this little button, playback. And when I click on playback, you should be able to do it with your own code, I believe, too. It opens up this event history where I can play back the student's code keystroke by keystroke. So notice I'm clicking the back button. I can see each keystroke that was taken to create the code. All right, so now I can see the student's thought process. I can see how they typed. I can see if they just do a big copy and paste, which we just saw right here, right? Oh, Joe left. All of a sudden, some code was deleted, which I'll do that again. We had some of that TK enter GUI code there. It's deleted, all in one swipe. I can also see when it was pasted in. If I go back a little bit, I'm going to assume it was copied and pasted in. So I can go back each keystroke that the student took. It tracks everything. This monitor. I can also just drag this along. Let's see. Twitter was very cool. Oh, right there. I saw a little copy and paste dump. Twitter was very cool. Boom. All of a sudden, some code appears. That's when you know someone copied and pasted it. There's not a video playback feature, although I know that is on the list of things Coding Rooms is possibly looking at, where you can just click play and it just kind of runs through, and you can set a play speed. So they are looking at that. Right now, you have to kind of manually drag that thing or click, forward and back. So we have that activity monitor. It also shows files. So if I go over, and I'm gonna exit the activity monitor. I'm gonna create a file in here. Some file. Okay, I create that file. I go over, I type in there some stuff, right? If I go back to the playback history, I can actually see each individual file, how they were edited and when they were added. If I go back, I can see, oh, that file didn't exist. So right here at this timestamp, this file was created. Even when the student deletes a file, it's still in the playback history. So if they upload some file, right, and they copy some code from it, and then they delete it, it shows in the history still. And you can see what people type, and you click on the individual files and see the individual playback for that file. I also want to point out for some tracking, when we're tracking the students, right? I can also, so Mr. Roberts here, for instance, is showcasing this, but I'll have a bunch of you do an error in a minute. You can also see how many times the student ran their code. So if a student's not running their code, there's an issue. You're like, why is the student never, we've been doing all this stuff. Why they never click run? Then you can see what's going on with that student. You can actually walk over to the student and say, what's going on. So all these little indicators really help you while you're trying to go through this demo and you're trying to use as much class time as possible. These little indicators that make it so you don't have to waste your time as much, like making sure you circle the whole entire room. You see these other little things. So I can see you ran the code twice, one error. So one time they ran the code and there was an error. So I can go over, let me click on Mr. Roberts' code. Let me see if there's still an error. I'm in the playback. Whoops. Mr. Roberts' code. All right, run it. Doesn't seem to be an error anymore. Good, that student fixed their code. A bunch of you that are on right now, go over to your code, create an error. Get rid of a parenthesis or get rid of a quotation mark, do that. And we should see on my activity monitor, I should see people are getting errors. All right, I can see over here, Kayla got an error. I see a bunch of errors popping up now. The anonymous caterpillar, one of my favorite students, had just had an error. So I can see these error messages. I can sort by most recent engagement. I can see who's interacting right now, who's typing right now. I can sort that. Oh, I can see, yep, some of these people had errors that most recently engaged there. 1 second ago were typing, 2 seconds ago were typing. So I can see that all real time. So if I sort by recent engagement, anybody who's typing right now goes to the top of the page. Other than the people that raise their hand, they're the very top, but then it sorts by that. Someone asked about GitHub integration. We can check out, we can show you a little GitHub integration. It's only integrated in the terminal, the command line, console, however you want to talk about it. Right now, we don't have any GUI integration with GitHub, meaning you can't do commits through some user interface element. But however, you can use the command line to pull down some code from GitHub and commit some code, stuff like that. This is not limited to middle school and high school. Any grade level can use this. The very last session of the day, we're going to show off what Coding Room's been working on when it comes to block coding. So they're starting to think of the lower grades. Coding Rooms as a company started in university, kind of university as target market, then high school, and now we're working through middle school, and we keep working our way down to kind of meet all education needs. The teacher cannot lower their hand, and I think that's something that I'm gonna request. As I've seen a lot of students, even people here today, kind of don't lower their hand after they get the help. So it would be useful for the teacher to kind of click on the hand and maybe lower it.
Joe, I already called Sasha. He's working on it right now.
Oh, really? And that's how fast Coding Rooms iterates. I mean, throughout the time that I've been with Coding Rooms, the improvements have been amazing. And that's what I've really liked. A company that is very responsive to the user's feedback and can deliver. And that's what I've been blown away by. And some people are already giving big shout outs to Sasha, how amazing he is. That's the co-founder and CEO, if anybody doesn't know, of Coding Rooms. Yes, so students can pull down and commit code with GitHub. They've got to know kind of Git from the terminal more. It doesn't have like a GUI to do it, that's all. In the future, where they're hoping on a more direct GitHub integration, including GitHub Classroom integration. So I've been in some conversations with GitHub where we're kind of looking at ways to do that. Code error indicator doesn't go away, it just kind of stays there. So I know when you have a large class like this, kind of tough to realize like, well, they had 5 errors, why do they have 10 now? So that would be some really good feedback, Enzo, if you want to write that down, some way to clear the number of errors or even the runs or something like that for the teacher.
Right. I think from previous iteration, it should go away automatically after 10 minutes, but yeah, for the code error on the activity log, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it should go in within 10 minutes. But if that's not the case, I'll definitely let the engineering team know about that.
Lily, we will be having other PD for brand new teachers where we actually show you how to code in Python or how to code in Java, stuff like that, as well as using the Coding Rooms IDE. So please be on the lookout for that. If you've logged into Coding Rooms, you'll get the newsletter. So be on the lookout for that stuff. There is a chat button. So I didn't go over the chat, but it works pretty much as you would think. You can chat with everyone, where all of you will get this on their screen. So that's kind of a global chat, as well as I can message individuals. So it does have this chat feature. You can disable it if you don't want that in the live classroom. The chat does persist also, so it's there. So you can use that as an area of communication. And even when you leave the live classroom and come back, it's all there. The chat is even on individual, I'm from Rhode Island. So the chat even in individual workspaces is there. And you can use that as a communication channel between your students. If I want to thread with my student or I'm going back and forth with them, I use the chat to do that, and it persists, like I said. So when they come back to the workspace, it's still there. You can have, I think, Enzo, correct me if I'm wrong, the normal account limit is 100 students. You can have in a live classroom.
That's correct. It's 100,
So,
yeah, around 100, 120.
Yep, so that's the normal limit. If you need more than that, you can speak to the coding room sales, and they can set you up with a paid account that allows for more. So we didn't talk about this. Some of you may not know, there is a free tier where you logged in today, where you can access coding rooms and many of its wonderful features. So you can start off with that. And then if you'd like some of the more advanced features, with some of the tracking and stuff as part of that advanced, some of the things with gradebook that you'll see in sessions later today are part of the paid plans. If you want some of those things, then that's part of the paid subscription. Can students chat with each other? Yes, unless you disable that. So I'm thinking younger grades for sure would want to be able to disable that. There's a screen recording, but it only is when you have, there's another feature, let me bring that up, where you can, do video conferencing right inside of coding rooms, and it will record that video conferencing. It doesn't record the entire code thing. So I usually screen share the entire code screen and do a recording. When we were online, I was doing that. So I was using an external tool. Let me showcase this very quickly if I can get it up. So as you can see over here, if you look at my screen share, you can turn on the conferencing feature, and you can see video conferencing right inside of coding rooms. So you also have that inside of a live classroom. If you are remote with your students or you're going to be online, you don't have to use Zoom or Teams or Google Meets to do the video conferencing with your students. You can access it right inside of coding rooms, as well as the presentation in the workspace and all that stuff, all inside of one window, which is incredibly useful. I actually turn this on and I use it to share my PowerPoint slides if I'm going through a lesson that has kind of slides that go along with it. So that's another great thing you can do. All right, I promised that before we ended here, I was going to click on the exit button or finish. I'm going to click finish, and you'll see that it's going to kick you out of the live classroom, and I'll reopen it, and you can go back in, no problem at all. Conferencing video window can be disabled in the free account. So all of you in that live classroom should be kicked out, can't access the live classroom anymore. It's saved only in the My Workspace, only saved in that live classroom. So the teacher has to reopen the live classroom, which I'm doing right now, for you to be able to access all that work again. So I just reopened it. You can actually go back in and you can access it again. It does not save to the student's account anywhere else. So this is great if you want to do an assessment where you want to lock them out after a certain point. Some people have done that where they use the live classroom for the assessment, lock them out, and then do that. If you want to see the setup of the live classroom, you can always go to the live classrooms area, create a new live classroom, and you can see where you can enable audio and video. That's the conferencing. Turn that streamlined code presentation on and off. Streamlined on, there's a little information bubble that explains it to you. Streamline on means the students cannot edit that presentation area. If you turn that off, which I think is the default, it allows them to actually be able to type in that presentation area.